Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. I am your host, Halli Casser-Jayne. As always, I am thrilled to have you here with me. Today, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show is sponsored by the 29th edition of the Miami Book Fair International, November 11 through 18 in downtown Miami at Miami-Dade College. Among the 300-plus authors from around the world, Tom Wolfe, Junot Diaz, Anne Lamott, Lemony Snicket, Robert Caro, and Emma Donahue. For more information, visit www.miamibookfair.com. Before we get started, I'd like to have you all join us in our chat room live right here on our Blog Talk Radio page, where we promise to engage you in a lively discussion. Hi, guys in the chat room. It's always a pleasure to have you here with us on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. So, okay, my friends, let me tell you about the subject of today's show. I do have three dynamic guests who have one thing in common. All three made it to the pinnacle of their chosen careers, then opted out for something new and different, their second acts. Change, they say, doesn't come easily, but you can't tell from these three forces of nature. The show, Second Acts. My guests, Gil Garcetti, MARSHA Mason, and now, Linda Evans. Okay, guys, Linda Evans. Smart, beautiful, graceful, elegant. She's had a storied career, a favorite of television viewers for over 5 decades. From her role as Audra Barkley on The Big Valley, to the glamorous Crystal Carrington on everyone's favorite Dynasty, to Hell's Kitchen, which she won in 2009 in London, England, Linda has come into our homes the consummate entertainer. She's won the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Television Drama Series and has won 5 People's Choice Awards for Best Female Performer. Linda was also nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series. For her contribution to the television industry, Linda has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She's traveled the globe. She's loved and been loved by some pretty great men, John Derek and Yanni, just to name 2. She's dined with queens and presidents, and her often lavish and luxurious life has rival Crystal Carrington's. But after all of that, what does Linda cherish most? The wisdom that she has gained along the way, much of which she shares in her compelling memoir, Recipes for Life. Now she's about to open up her heart, her past, and her kitchen to all of us here on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show as we explore the life of Miss Linda Evans. First and second acts. Welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. I can't talk today, Linda. Welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, Linda.
You're saying so beautiful. I'm sitting here going, my goodness, how lovely.
Look at all you've done, lady. Boy, haven't you had some life? I mean, and life without reflection isn't worth a darn as far as I'm concerned. I love the reflection and honesty in Recipes for Life, and the recipes, wow. Why now? What prompted the book?
Well, I guess changes in my life. You know, I went through a really difficult time where I look now at everything that is painful has a great gift on the other side of it for you. And I really walked through a lot of my thinking in my life that was limited and came out a lot freer on the other side, and wanted to share with people my experiences and my passion for food and cooking. And it is a memoir book with some recipes, and I just wanted to give them the best of my life, you know, the highs, the lows.
I think it was very honest, and we're going to discuss a little bit more of that as we go along. Let's go back to the beginning, because I don't think a lot of people know about your childhood and where you were raised and how you were raised. Give us a little bit about that.
Well, I was born in Connecticut but raised in California. My parents were professional dancers, and my mom retired when she started having children. I was so shy that I wouldn't get up in junior high school and give a book report, so my English teacher said that they would flunk me if I didn't take drama. And, oh, well, I just would throw up every time I get on the stage to do it. And was discovered when I was 15 while I was with a girlfriend who was up for a commercial, and the director wanted me to do the part. And that sort of began my acting career.
An unwitting beginning, huh? I love it.
For sure.
Absolutely.
That one.
It's funny how things come. I mean, I'm going to talk about fate in a way. It was almost fated, I think, after I read the book. I said, that lady was fated to become who she became. Not to mention, to belittle all the work that you did to get there, which we're going to talk about. So, actor, producer, writer John Derek comes into your life. Talk to us a little bit about John Derek. I know a lot of people want to know about that. He kind of had a second career of marrying the great beauties of the time, Ursula Andress, Bo, Derek, and you, of course.
Well, again, I was a teenager, went to the movies with my sister and saw a movie called Haji Baba, and John Derek was, a prince in the movie riding across the desert, and I said to my sister, I'm going to marry that man, and she said, sure, and then I bought a movie magazine, and it said he was married and had children, and I cried, but I thought, I'd put a picture of him over my bed and had it there all the while I was growing up. And as life would have it, I did a pilot for a show called The Big Valley with Barbara Stanwyck, and John Derek had seen the pilot and was photographing. He was an actor. He had retired from acting and was directing, filmmaking, and photographing. And he wanted to take pictures of me, and I thought, my God, that's the man I was in love with when I was a teenager. I could meet him. So I knew he had been married. He had divorced his first wife and now had married Ursula Andress. And she was away doing a film in Europe, but he invited me over, and I met him, and I thought, oh, my God, he's just as romantic and beautiful and wonderful as I thought. And he talked about his bride, Ursula, who he'd been married to for 9 years, and I thought, he is romantic. This is great. And I enjoyed meeting him. He took pictures, and a few months later, he called me up and asked if he could take some more pictures, and I went over, and Ursula had run off with her leading man in her film, Jean-Paul Belmondo, and he was there and available and asked me out, and I married him.
Oh, God. It should happen to me. My favorite role of his, by the way, was in Exodus. I just loved, I never knew it was him for years.
Right.
That he played that part. He did it so well. This is a crazy question to ask you at this point, but I'm going to ask you, and then, was he a Svengali to women?
When you say Svengali, what does that mean? Because
somebody actually asked me to ask you that question.
Okay, because to me,
and I think by that
that's almost as if he's just so charismatic that you just you don't have will. You meet him and you're there and you're under his power. But the truth is that John was an extraordinarily charismatic man in terms of he was an individual. He thought differently, lived differently. I mean, our home was Bedouin in a sense. He was like that movie that I saw. We had, instead of a couch, something he built that furs were on, and he didn't have our dining table was very low to the ground, so you sat on pillows, and it had cow hide on it. Everything was unique and different. It was sort of otherworldly. It went back in time, and he was very romantic. I mean, he would leave me every night before we go to bed. He had a book that he wrote a love letter to me in. And he made me, when you were in love with John, you were the only person that existed in the world.
Wow.
And you were the most important person. And he made me clothes. He loved working with leather, and he went to the costume company that made my boots for Big Valley and the different movies I was in. And he got the last for my boots, and he made me a pair of boots. It took him a year, almost a year and a half, to make me a pair of boots. And, he was
special.
Very unique.
Yeah, and so are you, and I think that's probably why it worked. And so that's a pretty interesting take of you on him. I'm giving you one back on you after reading the book. I love your line in the book, love doesn't have to end because a relationship does. And in fact, you practice what you preach. You remain friends with him even after he left you for Bo. And we'll talk about your other loves and friendships, including Yanni. I think that's a great trait of yours. Another insight of Linda's. This lady's really got it together, folks. Blessings often come in the disguise of loss. No life is perfect, that's for sure, and you've had your share of losses. In fact, your role on Dynasty happened despite a loss, didn't it?
My role on Dynasty happened in spite of a loss.
You had a part that
okay, I'm thinking of death now. The most extreme place that I could go. Sorry. You mean, all right, firstly, we've sort of jumped around. All my life, I just wanted to be married. I never wanted to be an actress. As I said, fate kind of came in, and this director wanted me to do this commercial, which led me to, meeting John Forsythe. My first speaking part in my life was given to me by John Forsythe, who... I was 15. My mom had to come on the set with me, and I fell in love with him then. And so it was so easy later in life to play his wife on Dynasty. But basically, I fell in love with John. After Big Valley, he wanted me to retire. I quit. John left me for Bo, who was Kathleen Collins in those days. Not anyone that anybody knew about, but he fell in love with her when they were doing a movie in Greece, and he was directing her. So once again, I thought, okay, I'm, back working, met a guy, got married again, and that ended. So I needed a job. For the first time in my life, I was in my late 30s, and I thought, you know what, I've got to make my career work. I picked up a phone, called my agent, and said, I need a career. And he said, my God, Linda, I've been trying to talk you into your career, since you were in your early 20s. Now you want one you're older. I said, it has to work. I don't want to take money. I'm leaving my second husband. He was a playboy. I jumped from the frying pan into the fire. I want to have a career. I want to be independent. I want to be on my own. And he said, there are not many women your age working. It's Farrah Fawcett and Jacqueline Smith. They're all younger, but we'll see what we can do. I was just praying every day, and I wasn't getting parts in a movie. I was up for a movie that I think you're referring to, called The Black Hole. And I had worked for Walt Disney. I had worked for the director that was doing this at Disney. I had worked with one of the lead actors that was in it, and I thought, how perfect. Life is answering my prayers. This miracle is going to happen. I'm going to get a great movie and start my life again. And I went up for the part, and they said no, and they gave the part to someone else. And I said, okay, do not be dismayed. Your part is out there. Keep the faith. About quite a few months later, they called me back up and said, we're replacing her, the actress, because she's on drugs, and we would like you to come in again. And I thought, aha, I'm here. The part's been waiting for me. I'm going to go back and get it. I went up, and they gave it to Yvette Mimieux, and I thought, my God, why? This career thing that I want now just isn't happening. And a short while later, my agent called and sent me a script for a show called Oil, which later turned out to be Dynasty. And if I had gotten the part in The Black Hole and done it like I wanted, I would not have been available because it was filming at the same time as Dynasty, and Dynasty was a 9-year part, and The Black Hole was a 9-month part.
Right.
So I stopped thinking that I know what's best for me and say to the universe, give me what I should have, because I know you know.
I love it. That's a hard place to get to. It takes a little while, right? So you're 40, and it's a new beginning in a way, right? It's a whole, isn't this wonderful?
Beginning because I wanted a career. I didn't want to make my dream the man in my life, which I had done all my life. Husband and child, I'll be happy. How come everybody else has got it, and I've got this career thing and no marriage that works? so thanks to Dynasty, my God, it just, Aaron Spelling, I mean, the minute I came in to see him for the part, and he said, it's yours. As I was sitting there, I thought, my goodness, this is like a dream come true.
It was a dream come true.
Of course, we did the first show with not with John Forsythe, with George Papard.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, because a lot of people don't know that he was originally cast in that role of Blake Harrington, so I think that's a good, I wanted to ask you about that. So that, and also there was another role in there that, your role wasn't supposed to be you, right?
Well, when I went out to meet Aaron Spelling, and he said I had the part, they had offered it originally to Angie Dickinson.
Right.
And she was so tired from doing Policewoman and all the things that she was doing that, thank God, she said no, because Angie's a friend of mine, and years went by before I knew that they had offered it to her first, and she turned it down. I thanked her a million times for turning down that part.
I'll bet. I want to go back to a minute, because I do think that something that you have, that because the character of Crystal, basically compared to the Joan Collins character, was so sweet, but you have chutzpah. Linda Evans has chutzpah. You started your career working with the great lady of chutzpah, Barbara Stanwyck. Give us a little bit about what a gift that must have been and who she was.
Well, firstly, she was a legend in her own time, and so when I tested actually for the part with Lee Majors, who tested as well. There were two other actors and actresses that tested. We were so thrilled that we got the parts, because what a dream come true to be working with someone like her. And I remember the first day that I came on the set to meet her. You know, you see her in movies and she's just bigger than life, and she's actually quite a petite little woman, but there's nothing small about her except her height, because she was a powerhouse. But I met her, and I must say I just loved her the minute I looked at her, and she called me Audra since the moment that she met me to the day she passed. I mean, Linda never came out of her mouth, and my mom passed away during the Big Valley. And she put her arm around me, and she said, I'll never replace your mom, but I'll be your mom now. And she was there for me until the day she died. It was beautiful. Beautiful. Very protective, mentored me, helped me, as I say in the book, you know, she would, from helping me to eat the right things to getting me more energy, and we would ride our bicycles to the doctor and get B12 shots. You know, just tried to have her clothes, because they didn't have much of a budget. Nolan Miller was doing the clothes for Big Valley as well as Dynasty, and they didn't have the budget for me, so she'd give him a bunch of her dresses and say, here, make them bigger, and they had to, you know, I was feet taller and my shoulders were bigger. She was so dear. She always wanted to take care of me.
You're very lucky to have had cross paths with her, you know. And I think she gave you something, because I think in some ways that steeliness and that go forward, I think, is indicative of who you've become, at least from what I've read in the book. She also taught you how to do your own stunts, and that helped you out later on Dynasty, huh?
Exactly. I mean, I had never experienced an actress who loved to do her own stunts, and they came up to me the first year and took me aside and said, look, Missy, everyone called her Missy, Missy adores doing her own stunts. She's one of the few actresses that actually did a fall off a horse where your foot gets caught in the stirrup and it drags you in a movie, and she did it herself. And they said she would love it if you would do some of them with her. And I thought, well, how dangerous could that be if Barbara Stanwyck's doing it? We're going to be fine right now. We're in the burning building, and we're tied there, and the fire's all around us. And I'm going, oh, my God, you could die from doing all these things. I mean, she was extraordinary in her courage and her love of these things, and the runaway buggies and the things. And we just bonded over them, because it was just, she loved it, and it became a lot of fun. And so on Dynasty, when they wanted to do the cat fight with Joan Collins, I said, no problem. I know how to do everything.
Right.
I was scared.
And you said that you didn't really like doing the fighting, that you know, the verbal.
I'd much rather tumble around on the ground and
than do the verbal
water than to verbally fight. I don't like hurting people with words. I don't know, it's just a thing of mine. And so Joan, you know, whenever we'd have a verbal fight scene, she was in heaven, and whenever we had a physical one, I was in heaven.
I'm old enough to remember John Forsythe in Bachelor Father. Oh, gosh. So talk to me about this man. How lucky were you to work with him for 9 years? Oh, my gosh.
When I did meet him in Bachelor Father, it was a show called Crush on Bentley, and his niece, that he was the Bachelor Father of, and I were the same age, 15 years old, Noreen Cochran. We did the show, and I had a crush on Bentley, and in the end he fixes me up with these football players, and it was so sweet getting to know him then, and he signed my script because it was my first speaking part, and he put on it, Linda, you're going to be somebody someday. And I found it when I was doing Dynasty and brought it on the set and say, see, John, you were psychic. You knew this was going to happen. It was so easy. When I saw him, when I walked on the set of Dynasty, he looked at me and he said, my little Linda Evans, how you've grown. And how is your mother, Arlene? I mean, he remembered my mother's name. He remembered my real name, which is Evanstead. MGM Studios later changed it to Evans. I said, oh, John, it's going to be so easy to love you in this part. And it was heaven to work with him, absolute heaven. He had the most delicious sense of humor. He would make me laugh all day long, and we had so much drama, you know, in the script on Dynasty, and fights and things that we had to do with people, and he was constantly just joking and laughing and saying, come on, you can do this, and we'd have to go out and accept some award, and I was afraid to get up in front of people from when I was in junior high school. From that day I was so shy I wouldn't get up and do a book report, and he would encourage me and take my hand and walk up with me. I mean, he was extraordinary. We remained friends until he died. I talked to him like 3 weeks before he passed. We talked all the time.
Great man, great actor, great a presence. Yeah. Joan Collins, I've got to ask you, what was she like to work with? You guys worked also later in that great tour de force, Legends.
Right.
You traveled together, fabulous.
Right. See, people, because of Alexis and Crystal, just love to think that we were arch enemies. And the truth was that Joan, when I was married to my second husband after John, the Playboy, we had lots of parties in Malibu at the beach, and Joan was one of the couples that would come over. She and her husband would come over. So I knew Joan socially at the time, and when Aaron chose her, I was very excited. I thought, oh, my God, now it's two of us older women. I mean, Aaron could have cast this all very young. He could have, and he chose us, and I thought, my God, what a great opportunity for the two of us to say to women, look, you know, I was 40, she was in her 50s, and we could say, we're not finished yet. We got stuff to say and do.
You better believe that, lady, right? I mean, you know, life begins at 40 as far as I'm concerned. Women friendships and sisterhood have always been essential to your life. That is so clear. And you've had some extraordinary relationships even with the many wives of John Derek. Talk to us about all your friendships. I mean, Bunky, you and I were just talking off air about your very dear friend Bunky, who's been with you forever. And your sisters, you have a wonderful relationship, it seems, with your sisters. I love the friendship and the sisterhood. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of that.
Well, husbands may come and go with women. They're there. My friend Bunky, which I featured a lot in my book because the humor, my friend Bunky, well, she's 81 now, that I met, that I talk about when I went to her house for dinner and met her for the first time, and she was Ursula's best friend, my John Derek's, you know, previous wife, who I thought, you know, Bunky wouldn't like me if she was best friends with her ex-wife, his ex-wife. ended up being the most outrageous person I'd ever met. I mean, I went to her house for dinner, and she served this giant meatloaf formed in a penis with balls. And, I mean, and, like, who does this at their house? He had 4 children, and 2 of them were identical twins, about 6 years old, and they said, "Oh, Mom, not meatloaf again," as if they'd seen it all. And so I put her throughout my book because she was so outrageous. She did things that I didn't know anybody else ever did in life. She got me arrested. I mean, she just has done everything. And but she is my joy. And as I said, she worked for me during Dynasty. She was divorcing her umpteenth husband and settling her life. I was divorced, trying to figure out if I could have a career. And she came to work for me. And she retired, quite a time after Dynasty, but also got macular degeneration. But what I love about her and her feistiness and her spirit and who she is she moved up here to Washington State, to Anacortes, where her daughter lives, and formed a band. And she has a band, and there's like 8 members of the band. Her daughter is now, she's in her 50s, but mostly they're 70, 80, 87, I think, is the oldest. And they were going to perform at the senior citizens place, for people. And they ended up being such a great group that the Yacht Club and the Chamber of Commerce hires them, and all these different people privately hire them, and they donate some money to the Children's Hospital. And she's taught these people who were never musical how. The woman she bought her house from was a sculptress. She plays the gut bucket now, the bass. I mean, they perform and put on, and I'm having them to my house. They performed 7 years ago. They're going to be performing in 2 weeks in my backyard, and I'm having 60 people and a barbecue, and they're incredible. They're just, when I tell you, people just go crazy over them because they've just said, "Hey, look at us now. We're doing it too."
Inspiring, right? Yeah, right? Yeah, you go, my theory on this, you go out kicking no matter what you have to do, right? Just keep on playing, because that's just life. Spiritual journey, I know that's been huge in your life. Talk a little bit about that.
I felt very blessed and very fortunate to have experienced Dynasty. What a ride. 9 years of extraordinary life where I knew people all over the world. I would land somewhere in a private airport in the outback, and they would come running out and go, "Crystal." And I thought, my God. I'd go out there, and they'd point to the little TV antenna, and I thought, my goodness, it's like I had fame and fortune, success, money. It was extraordinary, but the blessing from it, and that was so amazing to me, was that I realized that it wasn't the be-all, end-all of life. You can have what people think is extraordinary, but somehow I knew that wasn't what I'd looked for all my life. I knew there was something missing, and I thought, my God, if it isn't this, what could it be? And it ended up being a journey into myself, because I had everything on the outside that anyone could hope for. I didn't have the child, although I have a stepdaughter from John, my first husband, that I'm blessed with and lives here on the property in the summer. She comes up and spends the summer here with me. But I knew that the most important thing to me at this point was to find out who I was. Who was this person that had this life? Who are we all, in the end, without everything around us? Who are we? And that was my spiritual journey. I moved to the Pacific Northwest. I have a school called RSE, Ramtha School for Enlightenment, that I go to up here, that I love, that I've been in. And it's really all about the school, and everything about it is about finding out who you are.
The inner journey, I think, is often the more interesting. As you said, you left Dynasty after 9 years. You moved to Washington State, changed your entire life, and then Yanni.
Right.
Love at first sight. Right. 12 years your junior. Genius musician. Oh, my, oh, my, oh, my. Lady, oh, my. Talk to us.
I know.
Yeah, right?
I know. Isn't life beautiful? As a matter of fact, Yanni's sister, Anda, was just here a week ago and spent 4 days with me. And we just had a wonderful catch-up time here together. But what was sweet was, you just said, I left Dynasty. Actually, before it was over, I left early the 9th season thinking it was going to go on forever because I wanted to have a life. I wanted to have a life where I had time to be in love, to get to know myself. And, of course, how wondrous that, into my life comes this guy who I called up on the phone because at the school that I've gone to here, we love his music and used to meditate to it, and so everyone said, oh, call him up and tell him we love him and come visit us in the Pacific Northwest, and I had no idea what a Yanni was. As a matter of fact, I thought he was Japanese, and I called and said, do you think I could get in touch with Yanni? And they said, well, he's creating some music, but when he finishes all that in a few months, he'll call you. And he called me. I had no sense of him. I'd never seen a picture of him. I knew nothing about him, and we arranged to meet in L.A. I still had my house in Beverly Hills and was going back and forth. And one day he came to my house, opened the door, and almost fainted. I took one look at him, and I thought, oh, my God, where have you been all my life? I wanted to slap him and say, what took you so long?
To get here,
and
right?
I was in love with him the second that I looked at him.
Yeah.
Second, madly, madly in love. And I thought, my God, how can this be possible? He's 12 years younger. He's in the music business. This isn't going to work. I can't do this. And, of course, I did.
And had a great time doing it. And it lasted quite a long time. What was 9 years, 10 years?
9 years. It seems to be the magic number with me, John.
Yeah,
Garrett.
well, what's your great line? You said even our enemies, and was never your enemy, can help us reach mutually beneficial places. So, hey, lady, you learn, you live, you learn. Play a game with me, because there's so many people who you've known. One word or so answers when I give you their name. Rock Hudson.
Oh, kind.
Wow.
Gentle man, caring man, funny sense of humor. Funny sense of humor. Love practical jokes, as I wrote in the book when he threw me down on a set and kissed me passionately.
Yeah.
Just play
I love
with the
that.
director.
Yeah. Ally McGraw.
Also, good lady. One of Hollywood's best ladies. Just got her feet on the ground and just a real person. I know why Steve McQueen married her. She was real extraordinary lady.
As long as we're saying Steve McQueen, let's do Steve McQueen.
Oh,
yeah.
Steve McQueen, fascinating. My God, when I worked with him, I almost forgot my lines. I'd be so busy watching him. He was just astounding to me. His ability, what he could do with lines, how he acted, he directed, he did all the clothes. He chose the clothes for me for the movie I did with him. He went with me to the dentist with the gold tooth I had on.
You're right.
I mean, just every detail.
Bob Hope.
Oh, charming man. Everybody's favorite person. Charming.
Sean Connery.
Well, Sean Connery. Dangerous. Funny, bright.
I know, right? Oh, my gosh. John Wayne.
Oh, dependable, responsible. He would go to shop for Christmas for his grandkids, and he would take all their sizes and with him and go pick out different things for the kids. I mean, just for like a legend in his own time, just amazingly thoughtful, beautiful, responsible man.
Richard Burton.
Well, he was troubled. Troubled. Because when I worked with him, Richard and Elizabeth Taylor had broken up, and it was just a hard time in his life. I did the movie with him.
Right. Sidney Poitier?
Oh, another classy man. Classy, beautiful, elegant man.
Ronald and Nancy Reagan.
Oh, well, amazing couple. Tremendous love between the two of them. The love that they had for each other was something to see.
Palpable.
They had something unique.
Queen of England.
Oh, I didn't get to know her that well. I mean, it was very formal when I met her, and I didn't hang with the Queen. So
no, right. But an impression.
She does her job well.
Yeah, apparently she does. She's doing it for a while. She's well practiced.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's, you know.
No, I know that. I know what you mean.
It's hard to be queen. I mean, the functions, the things, you know.
Can you imagine? I couldn't.
Lovely lady, but I didn't get to know her enough to say anything about her personal.
Kenny Rogers.
Adore that man. Adore that man. Fun, easy, likable. We used to have pizzas delivered to me because we both had a love of pizzas, and he found out. And whenever he'd get one on location, he'd have one sent to my room so I could have one too. I mean, just a joy to work with. Just a beautiful human being.
Mm-hmm. I love it. We're doing a show on pizza in a couple of weeks, as a matter of fact. One of my favorites. Yep, absolutely. Got to go there. You had a battle with depression.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was incredibly bold and honest to talk about it in the book. Give us advice for people who fight it. You know, 9 out of 10 people have depression at one point in their life. I mean, talk to us about that very briefly. I only have a few minutes here.
Well, I guess it's the degree of depression. There's depression and there's depression.
Right.
Mine was pretty long, and it was because I was letting go of a lot of ways I've held reality. The women, my sister Charlie, my sister Kat, Bunky, all had major cancer, macular degeneration, heart trouble. I mean, just major illnesses where I could have lost them all. And I had never felt so... You know, I want to cry now, even just thinking of it. I shouldn't be so. Yeah. I never felt out of control. No matter what I did, I couldn't make them well. And when I love somebody, I love them a lot. And so it really, because it fell, a lot of circumstances all was like a perfect storm.
Sure.
It kind of, I took myself down in my need to try to help and do, which I couldn't. And I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that in a way the brain shuts off. It does you a favor when you have so many emotional storms going on. There's a mechanism in the brain that kind of just gives you a lull, which is depression. It just makes you feel nothing. It's kind of shocking when you felt so much all your life and you can't get on top of it. And when you don't understand it, it can be lonely, it can be scary, it can be frightening. And people get very confused in your life, and you're of no use to anyone but yourself, because it's an inward journey again. And thank God I had so much spiritual awareness that I could begin to take responsibility for this moment and go, not to blame anybody for it, but just to say, what do you do now, Linda? This is where you're at, and how do you handle this? And with the many friends, I mean, as I say, I tried taking pills. I tried taking all the things that doctors said to give myself help, and I think that there is wonderful help for people, and it's like anything in life, it's a Band-Aid. It isn't a cure, and so to get the help is a beautiful thing, but then to say, how do I get beyond that even? How do I move to the next step where I can get back who I used to be? But interestingly enough, you never become who you were. You become more than you were. In a way, I can look back and say that depression, those scary times, my blood pressure falling on my face, not knowing what to do. It was such confusion and such pain and so much out of control. But I look back and I see the gifts that it gave me. I got stronger as a result of it. I became wiser as a result of it, and I wouldn't have missed it for the world. Thank God, thank God. Mm-hmm. My sisters and my friend got through it and are still alive, and I have great sympathy for people who lose people and then have to deal with that as well as get out of it. But I say depression can be a great teacher, and it can be have gifts for you when you come out that are extraordinary.
Linda, you're so lovely to be so honest. You're one of the most beautiful women to have ever graced the planet. That's the fact.
You're very kind. I'm not, but
yes, you are. So and stop it. So you're on the speaker tour now. Give us some wisdom on aging gracefully. You're how old? You're almost 70, right?
She's 70 this year.
Unbelievable. And looks still as good as she ever did. Oh, I hate you.
Aging gracefully is an option, by the way. And Betty Davis said aging ain't for sissies. She wasn't
That's
kidding.
For sure, right? Oh, wow.
This is really a fascinating journey. Gravity is fascinating. But you know what? We're very lucky today. We're very lucky that there are so many ways for women. We're living to be 89. The insurance company says 89. Now, that means we can go into the 90s, and young people today can go well beyond that, But it's fabulous. To me, aging, the best part about aging is wisdom. I mean, my God, I look back at the things that I learned and what it took me to learn. Wouldn't get younger and be younger to miss that, to give that up. Youth has its advantages, with how you look and your body and everything, but there's something to do with the wisdom we get later. We know life. I'm more comfortable in my own shoes. I am content with who I am. I love my life. I see how life works now and why we do what we do, and I have a greater understanding. I have more fun. I have more freedom now than I've ever had, and I walk an hour and 15 minutes every day with my stepdaughter in the summer when she's here. I work out 3 times a week with weights just to keep my strength, not to look good, however, you do look better, but to be healthy so that in my 70s and 80s, I can go on trips, I can hike in mountains, I can dance, I can swim, I can do things. I'm freer and happier than I've ever been, so now I have less of an attitude about having to be a woman and looking a certain way, although I can look a certain way, but I don't have to. I've given myself a freedom now, and I love it, and I have opportunities to do whatever we want. We're only limited by our mind. If women raise their kids and their grandkids, it's your time. Think of what you never did when you were young and that you have left as unfinished business, and my God, there's nothing we can't do, nothing. Look at Bunky with her band. She's like a star in her own town.
I love it. Nothing like going forward and
she has
doing
macular degeneration. She can't even read music.
Right.
She does it all, like Ray Charles. She's become the music. It's fabulous.
I love it. Beauty a gift or a hindrance, or is it both?
It's both.
It is
both. Because if you have it, at some point you'll lose it.
Yeah.
And if you never have it, you think if you have it, it means something. And in the end, it really doesn't mean anything. If we are a society that says what you look like defines you, we're in big trouble. Because our value comes from within us, not outside of us. It's very sad even that as a society we say that youth is where it's all happening, because they're discounting their older years and the wisdom that they have. I mean, cultures. I just went to Africa the beginning of the year and spent a week with the Maasai, living with them in their community, on the ground, just being there with them. And they honor the elders, are like the apex of what it is. Yes, when you're young, you're a warrior, but then later, everything is decided by the elders, and you're honored in the tribe, knowing that every person, from when they're young to the oldest, has a place and a value. And we need to have more of that in America.
We do. It's just a crying shame. It didn't used to be that way, so how we got here, I'm not sure, and I hope we change it back. Is there a price for fame, Linda?
Well, certainly there's a price for fame, which is why you have people like Elvis and Michael Jackson not living a long time, and Marilyn Monroe. I mean, if fame was the be-all, end-all, they would have lived long lives and enjoyed their creativity and their success and their, rewards for it. There's a lot of pressure when you're famous, to live up to an ideal that the fans have of you. And today with the press and how there's hardly a moment that you're not kept track of, to have a personal life, to go through the normal ups and downs, to have a marriage break apart when you're in the public's eye and famous is so much more painful than when it's private only, in that it's videoed and exposed every minute for everyone to see. Every little mistake you make is known by people. And so it's not that the personal experience of each person, even at home that isn't famous, isn't as valuable and painful, but it's just not put out for all to see. So to overcome or change or to deal with painful situations is much harder.
Linda Evans, gorgeous on the outside, a beauty on the inside. Linda Evans, proof there's always a second act and more. And for more about Linda, pick up a great read and great recipes, which we didn't get to in the interview, I'm sorry, in Linda's book, Recipe for Life. The paperback out, by the way, October 30th. Visit her on her website, lindaevansofficial.com, on Facebook at Linda Evans Official Page, and on Twitter at Linda Evans Star. Linda might be coming to a town near you to share some of her wisdom. For further information on that, again, check out her website, lindaevansofficial.com. Linda, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
With the 2012 election upon us, you'll want your copy of Halli Casser-Jayne's book, A Year in My Pajamas with President Obama, The Politics of Strange Bedfellows. Hallie's take on the American political scene is like nothing you've ever read. Smart, brassy, and thought-provoking, Hallie's view is that of an independent thinker with an uncommon sense of humor and a nose for the truth. Purchase your copy of A Year in My Pajamas with President Obama, the Kindle version, at Amazon.com. Books at Barnes & Noble stores and fine booksellers everywhere. And by the way, don't forget to follow Halli and all of her musings on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Halli Casser-Jayne, on Twitter at HalliCJ, and at HalliCasserJayne.com.
Now, MARSHA Mason. Her acting career speaks for itself. MARSHA Mason is a 4-time Oscar nominee, has won 2 Golden Globes, an Emmy, and a Grammy nomination for her extraordinary body of work. Who can forget MARSHA in films like Cinderella Liberty, The Goodbye Girl, Chapter 2, Only When I Laugh, and the cult classic Drop Dead Fred, to name just a few. From soaps to Broadway to TV to the director's chair, MARSHA has made us laugh and made us cry. And then, after her marriage to playwright Neil Simon ended, she found herself alone in L.A., in a city she says wasn't often kind to single women. And so, she left when her friend and now neighbor Shirley MacLaine beckoned her to New Mexico. MARSHA is about to tell us about her spread in northern New Mexico and more. Welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. MARSHA.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, it's so great to have you on. You certainly gave me lots of joy and lots of tears over the year. What a career lady. What a second act. From the glittering light of Broadway to a New Mexico Valley, you certainly have varied roles in your life. Let's get some brief background material. I don't know that everybody knows where you were raised, and get a little bit of your upbringing and get us to your big first career break. And let's do it fast. I know we're really short on time with you today.
I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, and went to school there, and then went to New York after I graduated college from Webster College, which is now Western University, with a very thriving drama department. And then just, was a regular working actress like everybody else, and then fortunately wound up in San Francisco at ACT, which was a full repertory company at the time, and then, boom, got hired by Mark Rydell and Paul Mazursky for the first 2 films, which came out in my first year with films. and then got an Academy Award nomination, and then went back to New York on Broadway in The Good Doctor and met Neil and got married, and then moved to California. And so here I am in Washington, D.C. doing Shakespeare. What can I say?
My hometown. Gosh darn you, that's where I've been living. And I'm in Florida now.
Oh.
Lucky you. You do meet Neil Simon. How did you guys meet? I don't even know that story. How did you meet?
I was hired to do The Good Doctor, a play that he had written. And I auditioned for the role and got it, and then we started rehearsals on the 3rd of October, and then we were married on the 25th.
I did that once. I know what that's like. Yeah, well, you know, Neil Simon writes for you. You guys are magic together, at least from my vantage point. Did it feel like magic?
Thank you.
Just magic.
Sure.
Brilliant.
We had a wonderful professional relationship, and we really enjoyed working together, and we did some really terrific work. So, yeah, it was a very happy period.
So what's it like after you have an author actually write specifically for you? Is any role as satisfying after that?
Oh, sure. I didn't really notice that it made it any different perhaps because of his professionalism and the quality of his writing. You just want something to be good that you're doing, and you want the material to be good, and so I was very fortunate to work with him.
Were you always funny, or did he make you funny? You are funny.
Well, I had a teacher at Webster who said I had an innate ability for timing, and that she couldn't really teach that. So I suppose I had it, but he certainly brought it out.
I mean, really and truly, I think some of the scenes that I can remember, and I'm a great movie buff, yours top them all. You are hilarious when you're on your roll. So
thank you.
You're quite welcome. So the marriage doesn't work. Oh, well, you know, here we go. Hollywood's not friendly to ex-wives of super playwrights. Time to move on, huh?
Yeah. Well, and also the business was changing at that time. And, you know, it was just, I wasn't feeling comfortable there, and decided to just kind of throw the pieces of my life up in the air and see what kind of pattern would form as they came down.
Courageous move. Moved, Act 2. Pal Shirley Jones McLean says to you, land in New Mexico, buy it, and so you do, right? You go there?
Yeah.
Tell us about that story.
Well, I had been looking at some land in New Mexico, and Neil and I had a second home in New Mexico as well, outside of right there in Santa Fe. And when we got divorced, we were toying with either keeping it or selling it. So I decided to sell it, and then when I was thinking about leaving LA, I wasn't sure where I would go. Some friends of mine were looking at property other than Shirley, and then Shirley told me she was moving to New Mexico and that she had seen some property that she thought would be really wonderful. And it turns out we're in the same neighborhood. So she bought the mountain and I bought down in the valley.
What were you looking for?
I think just a change. And just, like I say, throw the pieces of my life up and see where, what pattern would form.
So tell us about resting in the river farm.
Well, I never intended to be a farmer. I just bought the land, 247 acres. It was just raw land that had been grazed. And one thing led to another. Oftentimes that happens in New Mexico. I'm not sure quite why. It's a kind of special, magical place. And one thing sort of led to another, and because I was a big advocate of alternative medicine and natural products, it seemed kind of normal to perhaps maybe try and grow some things. And we did very well with it. And every time I had a question about something, I don't know, you kind of put out the question to the universe, and boom, within, 48 hours or 72 hours, somebody would come along and would have an answer, or they would guide me to the next person I needed to know. And before I knew it, I was a farmer growing certified organic medicinal herbs.
You weren't out there in the field.
Yeah, I was. Yep.
You were?
Oh, sure. I was just out there actually just a little over a week ago. We were harvesting ashwagandha, I think it was, and I also plant and compost and the whole 9 yards.
But I just told you that I had moved from Washington. That's what I was doing. At the same time you went, I went. Did the same thing. Now I came back to civilization.
Good for you.
I'm laughing about that because, believe me, I know about farming. So you have this thing. You've turned this. I mean, this is you. You create, don't you? I mean, you take a role, you take words, and you turn them into a character. You take a farm, and you build it into this extraordinary resting in the river business. What'd you learn from all of that?
That life teaches you some rather remarkable lessons.
You're a spiritual person, I know that.
You just have to be an adventurer, you know?
An adventurer you are. You even have raced cars. Talk to us about that.
Yes, yeah.
I love that.
Well, I guess I just didn't have enough to do or something. It was around the same time that after I got a divorce and stuff like this, and I wasn't working as much as I would have liked, and I'd always been interested in cars and racing. When I was in high school in St. Louis, a girlfriend's father owned a small track, and we used to go out and hand out the pit passes, and I was always fascinated by the funny cars and everything that would come through on the weekend. So when I was on a plane, I think going to the West Coast from the East Coast, and Paul Newman was on the flight, and so we got to talking, and he was going to race that weekend, and he invited me out there, and I just got really hooked on it and started to travel with the team. And then he suggested I go to some schools, which I did. And then I bought a little car and got a little team together, and I raced for about 7 years, SCCA racing, and made the Valvoline runoffs 4 times, and
wow,
had a great time.
That's pretty cool. Why'd you stop?
Yeah, it was.
That's what I'd like to do. You stopped, you had enough?
Well, between when I made the move to New Mexico, I still continued to race for, I think, a couple of years. But once the farm started to demand more and more of my attention, I just couldn't keep up with both of it. So
yeah,
the farm won out.
So, Marsha, give us a little bit something about Paul Newman. As charming as everybody says?
Oh, he's a sweetheart, yeah. He was a very, very special person.
Your favorite leading man? Isn't this mean? Can you name one?
My favorite leading man? Well,
now we ask you that. You know what? I'm asking you that as an actress, not even so much as a personality.
Well, I've had a great time with Richard Dreyfuss. We did a play together in London, as well as The Goodbye Girl, and we have wonderful chemistry together. And I loved Clint Eastwood and Heartbreak Ridge. I had a terrific time with him as well. So I've been very fortunate to work with wonderful actors.
I'll tell you what, married to Neil Simon, working with all these wonderful people, hard to find a guy to hang out with, huh? On that level. You know what I mean. Your favorite film?
I don't have one.
No? You know what? I was watching all your films, over the last week, trying to recall. It's a tough choice with you, lady. But I still think you were wonderful in The Goodbye Girl. Fabulous
Well, I
movie.
think that's a big favorite for a lot of people, and it seems to hold up, which is really nice. So there's a whole other generation of people that have seen it now. So
and if you haven't seen it, guys, go find The Goodbye Girl with Richard Dreyfuss and this just charming, hysterically funny. I mean, oh my God, she was unreal in it. Okay, Act 3 is coming, from what I understand. You're putting the farm up for sale?
Yeah, I am.
Wow.
I'm going to move back east, and I've been concentrating more on theater, although I'm still doing a lot of television. I'm going back out to L.A. to shoot another episode of The Middle, and I'm here in Washington, D.C. doing Shakespeare. And so I've decided that after all these years, because I've had the farm, 15, 16 years now, I want to downsize and simplify and be footloose and fancy-free.
Yeah, I get that.
Go where the universe takes me.
I think you're going to have a lot of fun, and it sounds like the universe, which has been very good to you in the past, is going to probably continue to do so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I only wish you the best, and I wish we had more time. But for now, the darling Marsha Mason, beginning Act 3. She'll be performing in All's Well That Ends Well at the Shakespeare Theater in D.C. Interested in her farm? Visit the website at www.restingintheriver.com and visit Marsha on Facebook at Marsha Mason. Hey, and guys, find a copy of Marsha's best-selling memoir, Journey. It's delightful. You'll be glad that you did. Marsha, you're a hard act to follow. Thanks. Gil Garcetti spent 32 years as a prosecutor with the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. He was the elected district attorney for 8 years, in addition to overseeing high-profile prosecutions such as the Menendez brothers and OJ Simpson cases. His office might have lost the OJ Simpson case, but boy, did Gil come out a winner. From public service, he moved on, but I won't be the one to tell Mr. Garcetti's story. Let's bring him on and hear about his journey. Hi, Gil. Welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show.
Thank you, Halli.
It's nice to have you here. And again, thanks for working with us on this. This has really been fun, huh? Crazy. Welcome to live radio. 32 years as a prosecutor. You have to be utterly civic-minded to endure that grind. Is that a calling or something? What? What?
Well, I'm not sure. You may or may not know my son Eric is running for mayor in the city of Los Angeles, and people say, is this kind of in the blood? And I really can't answer that. I know that I came out of the 60s, born and raised in Los Angeles, and, it was Vietnam time when I was in law school, and I wanted to be sure that I guess we contributed the way we expected others to be contributing. I was not in Vietnam, but I felt there were other ways that we might be able to contribute.
I was in L.A. at the time, and you were a very well-liked man. Of course, you know that probably, right? But it all wasn't easy. I don't need to tell you that. It never is when you're in public service. You win some, you lose some, right? You won and served 2 terms as the Los Angeles County DA, and you oversaw those, as I said, the 2 high prosecutions, the Menendez and then the DA. And, of course, OJ prevailed in his trial. I'm going to ask you something that I've always wanted to ask you. Was that gut-wrenching to lose the OJ trial? And give us a feel for what part of your life's journey was like at that point. I mean, geez, so high-profile. Where do you get the gut?
We'll talk about this case very little, because I usually don't talk about it at all. But sure, it was a huge disappointment, but there's also no perfect system of justice any place in the world. And we had to move on. That was one case that was being tried in a jurisdiction that literally handles 70,000, 80,000 felonies every year. And Halli, did you know that there was a case being tried next door to the OJ Simpson case in which a black defendant was accused of invading homes of single women and then brutalizing them, raping, sodomizing, doing horrible things to them. And that jury, a mixed racial jury, convicted the man, even though no one could identify that this was a particular individual who did it because he had a mask on. But you never heard of that case, and no one heard of that case because no one paid attention to it. They were all paying attention to the high-profile case. So 99 to 9/10% of the time, there is justice in our courtroom, but there will never be 100% justice.
I brought it up not so much to go over OJ again, my God, ad nauseum, right? I'm sure you think so too. But this is a show about second acts, and I just think that you handled it all so wonderfully well and went on to do things and achieve things that half of us don't do under the best of circumstances, and you were coming out of something that was pretty rotten. But let me go back and just also say that what you say is true, and that's one of the travesties of our media, right?
Yep.
And so I'm with you on that one and feel your pain. I guess after something like that, though, everybody would have to go through some period of like, uh-oh, what next? And in fact, you actually won re-election after that trial, eventually lost, like, politicians do, in their time. But all those years in the grind, were you happy to be moving on or worried about what would come next?
I wasn't worried about what was going to come next because I was 58, 59 years old when I left office. And I'd gone through a serious illness when I was 39, and I was determined that I was going to live in good mental and physical health until I'm at least 88. So, Halli, I just looked at it and said, wait a minute. I spent 32 years in the DA's office. I have another really good 30 years left. Why not try something new? Completely new. Forget the law. Use your experience. Use, whatever you learned there, but maybe try something new. I wasn't quite sure what it was going to be, but then I guess I practice what I preach, and that is take advantage of opportunities. Don't ignore them.
Pretty neat guy. You guys are about to hear what this guy did, and it's kind of fun and interesting. I love it. I mean, and after that, you served 5 years in the LA City Ethics Commission, then became a fellow at the Institute of Politics at Harvard, and then you devoted time to helping Latino and African American students, right? Yeah. Complete their high school education. There's a theme here, Gil. You're a giver.
Thank you.
Yes?
Well, yeah, but I'm receiving something in return. I mean, people are inspiring me, and hopefully on occasion I might be able to inspire or change someone else who needs a little assistance or a little guidance. We all need mentors and assistants. I'm 70 years old now, and I had a 98-year-old mentor, a photographer, Julia Schulman, who, unfortunately died at 98.9 years of age, but for about 7, 8 years, he was a fabulous mentor of mine. And so we gave back to each other, and that's what really life is all about, giving back to each other.
And give back you continue to do. First of all, I'm going to ask you, I'm getting a note from asking if you can speak just a little louder. We're having a mic problem with you.
Okay.
Okay, there, that's much better. Okay, so you do give back, and something kind of interesting comes along your path, although it's kind of been there. Let's talk about your friend, the camera. You were fascinated with cameras, I understand, even when you were the DA, so talk to me about your love affair with the camera.
Well, my love affair started when I was a teenager. My father, who was a barber and an immigrant from Mexico, had no formal education, also had a darkroom at our house. Now, I never went into that darkroom, but he did give me a camera, and I started taking lots of pictures. And I always was taking photographs. He said, even when I was district attorney, I always carried a camera with me, and I was always taking photographs. But I never thought I'd become a professional photographer. And, I mean, the way that happened was so, serendipity. My son, Eric, had just been elected to the city council. This is 6 months after I have been, voted out of office. And this is June 2001, and I'm driving by the now very famous Walt Disney Concert Hall. Frank Gehry designed building, but it was under construction at the time. And I saw this one iron worker, and he was high up on a high arch piece of steel, raw steel, and he's crawling on it. And I said, whoa, look at this guy. I've got to take a photograph of him. So I pulled out my trusty little camera. I took some photographs. Then I've got to come back tomorrow. So I came back with some bigger equipment. The next day, took more photographs of these guys. I said, no, I've got to get on site. How am I going to do that? So I called the general contractor, and they gave me an old Italian gesture that, you can imagine what it was. They said, no, we don't let anyone on. So I was determined to get on. I contacted my buddies at the Iron Workers Union who'd been politically supportive of me, and we worked out a deal where I was on site. And I started taking photographs. And then all of a sudden, I hadn't planned on there being a book or whatever, but all of a sudden, there are people saying this should be a book, and it turns out there is a book, and it's in the third publication. It's called Iron, Erecting the Walt Disney Concert Hall. And that, frankly, just kind of launched a photographic career that I'm still very proud of. But it's it's just been fabulous because, here's the important thing. I left the law, but I was trained to think as a lawyer, trained to think as a CEO when I was in charge of 1,100 lawyers, and I've used all that in my photographic career.
I think there's something similar to the breaking down, I'm a photographer too, of the breaking down of what we see that is what captures a brilliant photograph. It's like we strip away, right, don't you? Strip away a lot of the extraneous, and isn't that what a lawyer does too?
Oh, most definitely. Excellent. I'm going to use that.
Well, you can't. It's mine.
Next time I go back, I'll use that. That's great.
So go for it, buddy.
I hadn't put it that way. Super.
That's what it is. I mean, that's what it is.
Sure.
I was at the beach yesterday. I'll just throw this in, and I was running, and I stopped, and I looked out, and it was one of those days where there's no cloud in the sky. It's a blue sky, turquoise. I'm on the east. Turquoise Atlantic Ocean. White sand, and it was just cropped. And I went, this is why I love this, because it's so clean. All the crap is out of there.
That's absolutely right.
That's it, right?
Cool. Yeah.
I came across your photography, which is why I wanted you on.
Okay, good.
Because I was just bowled over by your work, and you guys you have to go find all of his stuff, and just, oh my God, it's just amazing. You call yourself an urban photographer. Your work, as you mentioned, and I'm going to mention, is featured in some absolutely gorgeous books. But one book I want to discuss in particular, and that's Water is Key. Now, you and I share a love of Africa. In fact, right before we went on air, I was talking to my friend in Uganda, who I call a Moody, and he calls me a Bwoli, our Mpakos. He's where the outbreak of Ebola is, and I'm a wreck.
Oh boy.
Horrible. And I have some friends over there, and I go back and forth. And I'm working on Water Project, too. And so we have to compare notes on that. So let's talk your love of Africa. Let's talk water projects in Western Africa. Tell me about your involvement in Wellspring Hope.
Wellspring Hope is the foundation that I helped create that brings safe water to people in West Africa, especially, usually the poorest country in the world, Niger. When I say usually, there's sometimes another country that's poor that year, but Niger is always right there. I was exposed to this ALA a month after I left the office. I went to West Africa for the first time with the Hilton Foundation in January 2001, and I saw everything I expected to see. I saw, the poverty, the disease, the waterborne illnesses, the blindness that comes from bad water. But what really was brought home to me was the fact that it's the women and the girls that have to go and fetch this bad, horrible water every day, and that means that's how the women spend most of their day, and girls do not go to school. But then I also learned there's plenty of good water for everyone in West Africa. They're just too poor to find it and bring it up. So one borehole well in a village, I saw how that village dramatically changes. Yes, so much more healthier. The birth rate goes down. Everything improves, but most dramatically for me was what it did for women and girls. For women, so many of them became microcredit entrepreneurs. I mean, I met a woman who, she could be president of the world. She is so bright, so marvelous, so talented, but she heads a microcredit program in one village in Niger. But I think the very, very best thing is that girls are then enabled to go to school. And I talked to parents, I talked to girls who, for the first time in the history of the village, a girl was going to school, and the importance of that, not just to the girl, not just to the family, not just to the village, not even just to that particular country. It is important for all of us, everyone in the world, that girls are going to school.
Absolutely gorgeous and so perfectly said. And I think if you haven't been there, you and I have, and you don't understand just how really dismal life can be when you have to spend it running up and down a bad dirt road with a big thing on your head or on your back, plus your kid, to go get water, which, by the way, the way they get that water and where they bathe, where they wash their cars, because there's so little water available. So well put. Act 3, Gil, what's next?
Well, I've got two things going on. Obviously, I'm consulting producer to the TNT television show, The Closer.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Major crime. So that's just been a kick. It's been really a great. But then, I'm also still very active in the water program. We've teamed with World Vision so that if we raise $5,600, World Vision matches it, and it's with a particular village for 15 years, minimum of 15 years, to assure that the water well is there, that the women are in charge, that there's a microcredit program, that girls are going to school. So that will continue, frankly, for the rest of my life. But between now and November, I'm also the lead spokesman for Proposition 34 in California. It's an initiative on the ballot that would change the death penalty to life without the possibility of parole. And that's a change for me because I supported the death penalty. But we have 725 people on death row. The cost is obscene, $184 million every year, and there hasn't been anyone executed in the last 6 years, and there's no likelihood that people will be executed in the coming years. It takes 20 to 35 years for the entire process to play out, and for no good reason. It's not a deterrent. It doesn't serve any useful purpose. It's dysfunctional. It doesn't work. So I will be out doing that until November. And then between November and May, I'll be working with my son who's running for mayor in Los Angeles, and I think he has a very good chance of winning. So with my photography, with my consulting work on television, and with these political things that I'm doing, it's a pretty full life.
A pretty full life, a pretty great guy. Hey, Gil, you're a gem.
Thank you.
What a giving man. Yeah, no, it's true. You can find out more about Gil's work, by the way, at www.garcetti.com, and find Gil on Facebook at Gil Garcetti. And for more information about Wells Bring Hope, and I hope you all will go there and really support this. It's a major effort. I encourage you, visit wellsbringhope.org. Thanks, Gil. Well, interesting show, guys. What do you think? 3 people. I think they're all either 70 or hitting 70. I didn't even realize that when we started on this. But with a lot to teach all of us about living a full life. Today, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show is sponsored by the 29th edition of the Miami Book Fair International, November 11 through 18 in downtown Miami at Miami-Dade College. Among the 300-plus authors from around the world, Tom Wolfe, Junot Diaz, Anne Lamott, Lemony Snicket, Robert Caro, and Emma Donahue. For more information, visit www.miamibookfair.com. Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. Stay in touch, won't you? You can visit me at HalliCasser-Jayne.com, on Facebook at Halli Casser-Jayne, and on Twitter at HalliCJ. I love to hear from you. By the way, our podcasts after the show are available to listen to free. Everything's free. On iTunes, you can download the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Just go to Podcasts, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. You can also listen to us on the mobile site mblogtalkradio.com and on HalliCasser-Jayne.com. Please do. So, guys, until we meet again, this is Halli Casser-Jayne. It's a wrap.
You have been listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, talk radio for fine minds. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show airs Wednesdays at 3 p.m. and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Blog Talk Radio Network. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show is produced by Halli Casser-Jayne. Thank you for listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show.
Blog Talk Radio, where millions of hosts and listeners gather.
we go along. Let's go back to the beginning, because I don't think a lot of people know about your childhood and where you were raised and how you were raised. Give us a little bit about that.
Well, I was born in Connecticut but raised in California. My parents were professional dancers, and my mom retired when she started having children. I was so shy that I wouldn't get up in junior high school and give a book report, so my English teacher said that they would flunk me if I didn't take drama. And, I just would throw up every time I got on the stage to do it. And was discovered when I was 15 while I was with a girlfriend who was up for a commercial, and the director wanted me to do the part. And that sort of began my acting career.
An unwitting beginning, huh? I love it.
For sure.
Absolutely.
That one.
It's funny how things come. I mean, I'm going to talk about fate in a way. It was almost fated, I think, after I read the book. I said, that lady was fated to become who she became. Not to mention, to belittle all the work that you did to get there, which we're going to talk about. So, actor, producer, writer John Derek comes into your life. Talk to us a little bit about John Derek. I know a lot of people want to know about that. He kind of had a second career of marrying the great beauties of the time, Ursula Andress, Bo, Derek, and you, of course.
Well, again, I was a teenager, went to the movies with my sister and saw a movie called Haji Baba, and John Derek was, a prince in the movie riding across the desert, and I said to my sister, I'm going to marry that man, and she said, sure, and then I bought a movie magazine, and it said he was married and had children, and I cried, but I thought, I'd put a picture of him over my bed and had it there all the while I was growing up. And as life would have it, I did a pilot for a show called The Big Valley with Barbara Stanwyck, and John on it. Everything was unique and different. It was sort of otherworldly. It went back in time. And he was very romantic. I mean, he would leave me every night before we'd go to bed. He had a book that he wrote a love letter to me in. And he made me, when you were in love with John, you were the only person that existed in the world.
Wow.
And you were the most important person. And he made me clothes. He loved working with leather, and he went to the costume company that made my boots for Big Valley and the different movies I was in. And he got the last for my boots, and he made me a pair of boots. It took him a year, almost a year and a half, to make me a pair of boots. And,
he was special.
Very unique.
Yeah, and so are you, and I think that's probably why it worked. And so that's a pretty interesting take of you on him. I'm giving you one back on you after reading the book. I love your line in the book, love doesn't have to end because a relationship does. And in fact, you practice what you preach. You remain friends with him even after he left you for Bo. And we'll talk about your other loves and friendships, including Yanni. I think that's a great trait of yours. Another insight of Linda's. This lady has really got it together, folks. Blessings often come in the disguise of loss. No life is perfect, that's for sure, and you've had your share of losses. In fact, your role on Dynasty happened despite a loss, didn't it?
My role on Dynasty happened in spite of a loss.
You had a part that
Okay, I'm thinking of death now. The most extreme place that I could go. Sorry. You mean, all right, firstly, we've sort of jumped around. All my life, I just wanted to be married. I never wanted to be an actress. As I said, fate kind of came in, and this director wanted me to do this commercial, which led me to, meeting John Forsythe. My first speaking part in my life was given to me by John Forsythe, who...
Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. I am your host, Halli Casser-Jayne. As always, I am thrilled to have you here with me. Today, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show is sponsored by the 29th edition of the Miami Book Fair International, November 11 through 18 in downtown Miami at Miami-Dade College. Among the 300-plus authors from around the world, Tom Wolfe, Junot Diaz, Anne Lamott, Lemony Snicket, Robert Caro, and Emma Donahue. For more information, visit www.miamibookfair.com. Before we get started, I'd like to have you all join us in our chat room live right here on our Blog Talk Radio page, where we promise to engage you in a lively discussion. Hi, guys in the chat room. It's always a pleasure to have you here with us on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. So, okay, my friends, let me tell you about the subject of today's show. I do have three dynamic guests who have one thing in common. All three made it to the pinnacle of their chosen careers, then opted out for something new and different, their second acts. Change, they say, doesn't come easily, but you can't tell from these three forces of nature. The show, Second Acts. My guests, Gil Garcetti, MARSHA Mason, and now, Linda Evans. Okay, guys, Linda Evans. Smart, beautiful, graceful, elegant. She's had a storied career, a favorite of television viewers for over 5 decades. From her role as Audra Barkley on The Big Valley, to the glamorous Crystal Carrington on everyone's favorite Dynasty, to Hell's Kitchen, which she won in 2009 in London, England, Linda has come into our homes the consummate entertainer. She's won the Golden Globe Award for...
Derek had seen the pilot and was photographing. He was an actor. He had retired from acting and was directing, filmmaking, and photographing. And he wanted to take pictures of me, and I thought, my God, that's the man I was in love with when I was a teenager. I could meet him. So I knew he had been married. He had divorced his first wife and now had married Ursula Andres. And she was away doing a film in Europe, but he invited me over, and I met him, and I thought, oh, my God, he's just as romantic and beautiful and wonderful as I thought. And he talked about his bride, Ursula, who he'd been married to for 9 years, and I thought, he is romantic. This is great. And I enjoyed meeting him. He took pictures, and a few months later, he called me up and asked if he could take some more pictures, and I went over, and Ursula had run off with her leading man in her film, Jean-Paul Belmondo, and he was there and available and asked me out, and I married him.
Oh, God. It should happen to me. My favorite role of his, by the way, was in Exodus. I just loved, I never knew it was him for years.
Right.
That he played that part. He did it so well. This is a crazy question to ask you at this point, but I'm going to ask you, and then, was he a Svengali to women?
When you say Svengali, what does that mean? Because
somebody actually asked me to ask you that question.
Okay, because to me,
and I think by that
that's almost as if he's just so charismatic that you just haven't. You don't have will. You meet him and you're there and you're under his power. But the truth is that John was an extraordinarily charismatic man in terms of he was an individual. He thought differently, lived differently. I mean, our home was Bedouin in a sense. He was like that movie that I saw. We had, instead of a couch, something he built that furs were on. And, he didn't have, our dining table was very low to the ground, so you sat on pillows. And it had cow hide on.
Best actress in a television drama series and has won 5 People's Choice Awards for Best Female Performer. Linda was also nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series. For her contribution to the television industry, Linda has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She's traveled the globe. She's loved and been loved by some pretty great men, John Derek and Yanni, just to name 2. She's dined with queens and presidents, and her often lavish and luxurious life has rival Crystal Carrington's. But after all of that, what does Linda cherish most? The wisdom that she has gained along the way, much which she shares in her compelling memoir, Recipes for Life. Now she's about to open up her heart, her past, and her kitchen to all of us here on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show as we explore the life of Miss Linda Evans. First and second acts. Welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. I can't talk today, Linda. Welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, Linda.
You're saying so beautiful. I'm sitting here and going, my goodness, how lovely.
Look at all you've done, lady. Boy, haven't you had some life? I mean, and life without reflection isn't worth a darn as far as I'm concerned. I love the reflection and honesty and recipes for life, and the recipes, wow. Why now? What prompted the book?
Well, I guess changes in my life. You know, I went through a really difficult time where I look now at everything that is painful has a great gift on the other side of it for you. And I really walked through a lot of my thinking in my life that was limited and came out a lot freer on the other side, and wanted to share with people my experiences and my passion for food and cooking. And it is a memoir book with some recipes, and I just wanted to give them the best of my life, you know, the highs, the lows.
I think it was very honest, and we're going to discuss a little bit more of that as